You don't notice it, but your mind has been running long before you wake up. It rehearses danger, predicts loss, imagines futures that never come. Overthinking isn't a habit, it's the background noise of your identity. And yet, despite all the thinking, nothing in your life moves. Thought feels like motion, but it's just vibration inside a locked cage. Your body waits for instructions that never arrive. Here's the brutal truth. You're not overthinking because life is complicated. You're overthinking because you don't trust yourself to handle life. Your mind creates problems it can solve, just to avoid the real ones. It's easier to think endlessly than to act once. Thinking becomes the shield you hide behind. But here's where it gets worse. The shield becomes a prison. What once protected you now suffocates you. The mind you rely on becomes the enemy you can't escape. Psychologists call this the illusion of control. The mind believes that if it analyzes long enough, the world will become predictable. But the world doesn't obey thought, it obeys action. And here's the part you always ignore. The mind that overthinks is trying to feel safe, not smart. Overthinking is emotional protection disguised as logic. Every scenario you imagine is a soft attempt to avoid pain. Every analysis is a rehearsal for a disaster that will never come. Fear becomes a lifestyle. But here's the mistake you keep repeating. You try to think until you feel ready. That moment will never arrive. Readiness doesn't come from thought, it comes from movement. Overthinking drains the energy you need to act. It steals your attention, your confidence, your presence. It makes you live everywhere except the moment you're actually in. You become a spectator of your own life, watching from behind glass. You see everything, feel nothing, decide nothing. Your thoughts take the wheel while you disappear. Here's the truth nobody wants to face. The mind overthinks because it learned that thinking hurts less than living. Because real life includes uncertainty, effort, rejection, loss. So you stay in your head, where pain is predictable and imaginary. It feels safer than reality, even though it slowly destroys your spirit. But there's something darker. Your mind doesn't overthink problems, it overthinks you. Your identity, your worth, your fear of not being enough. Overthinking is self-doubt in disguise. The more you think, the less you trust your own voice. Eventually, your thoughts replace your instincts. Your mind becomes crowded with what-ifs, should-haves, and maybe-laters. Decision turns into fear. Fear turns into paralysis. Paralysis turns into regret. And regret is the final poison of overthinking, the one that makes you believe you failed even before you tried. Here's the painful part. Your overthinking isn't about the situation at all. It's about a wounded inner voice whispering, "You won't survive this." That voice was born years ago in moments of humiliation, failure, chaos, trauma. It learned fear before you learned confidence, and it never forgot. So now, every decision feels like a battlefield. Every choice feels like a test of your worth. Your mind treats normal life as if it's life or death. But here's the twist. You're not fighting the present, you're fighting ghosts of the past. You're solving dangers that ended long ago. Overthinking is your mind's attempt to rewrite history, to prevent the pain you couldn't escape back then. But the past doesn't need fixing, only releasing. Here's where most people make a mistake. They try to stop overthinking by forcing silence. But silence is not the goal, clarity is. Silence without clarity is just suppression. The mind doesn't heal by shutting down. It heals by understanding its own patterns, by seeing the loop clearly enough to step out of it. And here's the part you never expected. Your overthinking isn't excessive thinking, it's misplaced thinking. Your mind works hard, but in the wrong direction. You dive deeper into fear instead of clarity. You analyze feelings instead of reality. You chase certainty instead of progress. This is why you stay stuck. You think more, but understand less. You prepare more, but change nothing. You repeat the cycle because the cycle feels familiar. Familiarity becomes comfort. Comfort becomes habit. Habit becomes identity. Soon, you no longer overthink, you are an overthinker. But identity built on fear is fragile. One challenge, one risk, one moment of uncertainty, and your entire mental world collapses. And this explains why nothing in your life changes. You don't trust your decisions, so you delay your life. Every opportunity waits in line behind your fear. Overthinking becomes your comfort zone. A place where you feel safe from judgment, risk, failure, but also safe from growth, joy, and transformation. You think you're avoiding pain, but really, you're avoiding life. Life requires decisions. Decisions require courage. Courage requires trust. The mind that overthinks is the mind that has forgotten how to trust itself. You learned caution at the price of confidence. But here's the twist. Confidence doesn't come before action. It comes from action. You build trust in yourself by proving you can move despite fear. Overthinking collapses the moment you act, because action breaks the illusion of danger. The moment you move, the fear loses its fuel. Here's the surprising truth. Your mind doesn't want clarity. It wants certainty. And certainty is impossible. The world is unpredictable, and that's what makes it real. When you stop demanding certainty, your mind stops panicking. Decisions become simpler. Thoughts become quieter. Life becomes lighter. The way out of overthinking is not control, it's acceptance. Acceptance of uncertainty, discomfort, imperfection. Acceptance that thinking cannot save you from living. When you stop fighting your thoughts, they stop fighting you. They lose intensity, urgency, sharpness. They become weather, something that passes, not something that defines you. And here's the beginning of your transformation. You don't need to think less, you need to think differently. Your mind isn't the enemy, it just needs a new direction. The moment you understand your mind is a compass, not a cage, everything changes. A compass doesn't erase uncertainty, it guides you through it. It doesn't predict the future, it helps you walk into it. But a compass is useless if you stand still. Movement is what gives direction meaning. Without action, even the clearest mind becomes a storm. And here's the part most people never understand. Clarity is created by action, not by thought. You don't think your way into confidence, you act your way into it. Your brain is built to learn from reality, not imagination. Overthinking traps you in simulations that never match the truth. Only experience sharpens judgment. Every time you act, the world gives you feedback. Every time you overthink, the world moves without you. Action connects you to life. Overthinking disconnects you from it. The longer you stay in your head, the harder the outside world feels. Tasks grow heavier. People feel intimidating. Risks seem deadly. Reality becomes magnified by imagination. This is why small actions feel impossible, because the mind has built monsters out of moments. A difficult conversation becomes catastrophe. A choice becomes destiny. But here's the painful part. The moment you finally act, you realize the fear was a fraction of the size your mind painted it. Reality is always smaller than imagination. You don't need more confidence to act, you need action to create confidence. Movement rewires the brain faster than thought. Psychologists see this in every patient who escapes paralysis. But confidence is only one part of the cure. The deeper healing comes when you realize this truth. Your thoughts are not reality. They're predictions based on old wounds. Your brain doesn't predict the future, it remembers the past. And it uses that past as a filter for everything you see. Overthinking is memory, pretending to be foresight. This is why small risks feel dangerous. This is why new opportunities feel threatening. Your mind is comparing them to moments that hurt you long ago. But here's the part you always overlook. Those wounds are old, but your fear keeps them alive. You're reliving pain that has no place in your present. To stop overthinking, you must separate the past from the present. Not by forgetting it, but by refusing to let it dictate your interpretation of life. You are not the person who lived that pain anymore. You grew, you changed, you learned, but your mind still acts like you're that same fragile version of yourself. Overthinking is your mind living in outdated software, and like all outdated systems, it crashes when faced with modern reality. So the first transformation begins with awareness. This thought is old. It belongs to who I was, not who I am. That sentence alone breaks half the cycle, but awareness is not enough. You must learn to direct your mind not by force, but by discipline. Attention is a muscle, and yours has been lifting fear for too long. And this explains why your mind feels heavy. You've trained it to focus only on danger, on worst-case scenarios, on everything that could go wrong. But the brain learns quickly, faster than you think. Once you redirect attention even slightly from fear to reality, from imagined pain to present action, the loop begins to break. This is the turning point. You don't escape overthinking by not thinking. You escape it by choosing what to think about, by becoming the driver, not the passenger. Your mind will always produce thoughts, that's its nature. But you choose which ones you feed, which ones you follow, which ones you allow to grow roots. Overthinking thrives on attention. Remove attention, and it starves. Shift attention, and it dies. Replace attention, and it transforms. This is why mindfulness works not because it's spiritual, but because it's neurological. It trains the brain to stop feeding fear. It's not meditation, it's mental retraining. To stop overthinking, you must teach your mind to return to the present moment. Not the imagined future, not the resurrected past, just now. Because here's the truth. The present moment is the only place where fear has no power. Fear needs time, a future to project into. Without that future, it collapses. When your attention returns to the now, thoughts lose their authority. They no longer feel like commands, just passing signals. Weather patterns in the sky of your mind. And for the first time, you experience something radical. Mental space. A gap between you and your thoughts. A moment of choice. A moment of freedom. Most people never reach this point because they give up too early. They expect the mind to obey instantly. But the mind resists at first, and then it adapts. Quickly, quietly, completely. The loop begins to slow. Thoughts lose their sharp edges. Fear loses its intensity. You begin to feel something you haven't felt in years, internal, quiet. Not silence. Silence is empty. This is different. This is presence, a full, grounded awareness that doesn't tremble, doesn't rush, doesn't panic. This presence becomes your anchor, your point of return, your antidote to a lifetime of mental chaos. And the more you return to it, the stronger it becomes. And here's where your transformation deepens. The goal isn't to eliminate overthinking, it's to dismantle the system that fuels it. The system is built on 3 pillars: fear, uncertainty, and self-doubt. Break any one of them, and the entire structure collapses. Break all 3, and you become unstoppable. Fear weakens when faced. Uncertainty shrinks when accepted. Self-doubt dies when disproven by action. These are the real weapons against overthinking. This is the beginning of mental freedom, not the absence of thought, but the presence of authority. You stop following every thought blindly and start choosing your path consciously. The world feels different when you're not trapped in your head. Colors look richer. Sounds feel deeper. Time slows down. Life stops rushing past you. You start living instead of analyzing, feeling instead of predicting, acting instead of hesitating. Life becomes something you participate in, not fear. And slowly, something incredible happens. The mind that once drowned you becomes the mind that supports you. The enemy becomes the ally. The noise becomes wisdom. Because when the mind learns to move forward instead of in circles, overthinking dies on its own. Not because you forced it, but because you outgrew it. But before the transformation completes, there is a shadow you must face, the fear of making the wrong choice. This fear has controlled you more than any person or event. It is the invisible ruler of your life. Overthinking convinces you that choosing wrong will destroy everything. But life is not fragile. Your path is not made of glass. You can step, stumble, fall, and still move forward. Here's the paradox. The only wrong choice is the one you never make. Inaction guarantees failure. Action gives you a chance. Overthinking steals your future by trapping you in imagined disasters. You live in simulations where everything goes wrong, so you never get to see what could go right. Your life becomes a museum of unrealized moments, all the things you could have tried, loved, changed, created. Overthinking collects them like artifacts. But here's the turning point. The brain learns through doing. Neuroplasticity, the ability of the mind to change, is activated by action, not perfection. Every small step rewires you. Every decision strengthens your sense of self. Every risk taken expands your identity. This is how overthinking dies, not instantly, but structurally. And this is the part that surprises everyone. Confidence is not the absence of fear. Confidence is choosing anyway, moving anyway, living anyway. Fear loses its power the moment you stop negotiating with it. Overthinking loses its grip the moment you stop asking for permission. Freedom begins the moment you stop delaying your life. And slowly, something shifts. Your mind stops feeling like a battlefield and starts feeling like a tool, a partner, a force that moves with you, not against you. This new mind doesn't obsess over every detail. It doesn't create imaginary catastrophes. It doesn't rehearse every possible outcome. It trusts the process and trusts you. And when the mind trusts you, everything becomes lighter. Decisions feel manageable. Uncertainty feels natural. Life feels open instead of threatening. But there's one more truth you must face. Overthinking doesn't end with understanding. It ends with identity change. You must stop seeing yourself as the person who analyzes everything and start seeing yourself as someone who moves, chooses, creates, adapts. Identity is the strongest force of human behavior. If you believe you're an overthinker, you will act like one even when you don't have to. So the true cure begins when you say, I am someone who decides. I am someone who acts. I am someone who learns by doing. This shift is subtle at first. You won't feel different immediately, but your actions will feel different. Your thoughts will feel different. Your fears will shrink without a fight. Because overthinking is not a thinking problem, it's a confidence problem. And confidence grows every time you prove to yourself that you can move. And here's the insight that changes everything. Fear doesn't disappear when you understand it. It disappears when you outperform it. You don't wait for courage. You build it. Brick by brick, action by action, moment by moment. And one day you realize, the things that once terrified you no longer control you. Your mind becomes a quieter place. Not empty, just no longer hostile. Thoughts come and go without dragging you with them. You feel grounded, centered, alive. And in that quiet, something powerful appears. Choice. Real choice. Not the illusion created by overthinking, but actual freedom to decide. You realize you can choose what matters. You can choose what deserves your attention. You can choose which thoughts to follow and which to release. For the first time, you feel ownership over your mind. Not through force, but through clarity. Not through control, but through understanding. And clarity gives rise to something even deeper: trust. Trust in your instincts. Trust in your future. Trust in your ability to engage with life instead of fearing it. Life opens the moment you stop negotiating with fear and start partnering with reality. The world feels less dangerous, not because it changed, but because you did. People notice it. They feel the difference in your presence. You speak more clearly. You hesitate less. You move with a quiet confidence that doesn't need to be announced. Your relationships improve because you're no longer trapped in assumptions. Your decisions improve because you're no longer driven by fear. Your life improves because you're finally living it. This is the emotional payoff of breaking the overthinking cycle. You rediscover your potential. The part of you that was buried under layers of fear begins to breathe again. And beneath the fear, beneath the doubt, beneath the noise, you find something unexpected. Strength. Not loud strength, quiet strength. The kind that stands without shaking. This strength becomes your new foundation. Not thought, not fear, not overanalysis. Strength born from clarity, trust, and action. Overthinking fades because it no longer serves a purpose. You don't need it anymore. You've outgrown the version of yourself that depended on it. This is the moment people call taking your power back. But it's not power, it's alignment. Your mind and your life finally move in the same direction. You no longer fear making decisions. You no longer fear uncertainty. You no longer fear yourself. And that absence of fear feels like freedom. Freedom is not the lack of thought, it's the lack of mental imprisonment. Your thoughts flow, but they don't hold you. Fear speaks, but it doesn't guide you. And then it happens, the shift you've waited for your entire life. Decisions become intuitive. Movement becomes natural. Life becomes participation, not avoidance. You start living with momentum instead of hesitation, with purpose instead of fear, with presence instead of prediction. This is what it means to be alive. And as your mind settles into this new way of being, you realize something profound. The cage was never the thoughts, the cage was believing they were you. But you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness behind them, the witness, the architect, the one who chooses the direction of your life. Your mind built the maze, now walk out.